Well, welcome to this episode of Bird Watching with John, right? Well, here we look for the ever-elusive white with blue striped TransAm, or Mockingbird, that's what we've been calling him. But as you can tell, he's not so white and not so blue striped yet. But that's what I'm going to get in here today. Stage 3 of the major painting process here on Project Mockingbird. We've got the whole main body painted, got the stripes on the main body, and I even got the fenders put back on the car. Now it's looking a whole lot more gooder, but we're missing some key parts, this hood and the cowling, and those stripes go clean across that cowling, across the hood, and then over these front hood scoops. So I'm going to show you how I lay out the stripes, where I get the information from, what materials we use, in case you're wanting to try to conquer something like this, or even paint stripes on any car. You could use this technique. Now from the factory, this car would have been painted completely cameo white, and then it's all assembled, and then what they do, then they just tape it off and shoot some blue on it. They even let the overspray go down in between the hood and the cowling there. They don't really have a defined tape line. Now for some reason I struggle with doing that, so I won't be basically duplicating that process. I'm gonna leave a nice clean line and tape it off. So that won't be a 100% like the original Trans Am, but also these cars, the original Trans Ams, weren't based clear coat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint it white, put the blue stripes on, and then bury all that underneath about 3 to 4 coats of clear coat. Then once it's cured and dried for several days, I will cut and buff that and then polish that to a finish where you won't see the tape line or feel the tape line on this car. That's how I like to do it. Now again, that's not how the factory did it, so that's why I'm gonna say getting the blue overspray down in between the panels, so we're gonna have a nice clean line. But how we get to that point, that's what we're gonna get into here today. Well, let's get into what we've got here for prep work. Hood, extractors, and cowling. That's what we're going to focus on. You'll see some other parts, so I'm going to try to spray those while I have the paint mixed up. Because the Trans Am spoiler supports, those are painted the blue, spoiler 100% all white. So if I have enough paint and time, I'm feeling good, I'm going to try to paint those while we're at it. But the main focus is going to be on these 4 parts here. Each insert, cowling, and the hood. The hood has been sanded all down and prepped and cleaned to 600 grit sandpaper. And you'll also see in here behind these inserts, I have it masked off. Now the reason I like to mask things off is that for dust control, it keeps the air down. I have to blow paint into here, so the last thing I want to do is stir any dust and dirt out of between the 2 layers, so we have the outer skin and the inner structure. Well, it's kind of like a gutter. It's holding all kinds of crap and debris, especially if you had an original Trans Am hood. I can only imagine the monsters might be hiding in that. So I did that to help for dust control. And also got part of the process, I got to take those out when I tape it off. Now the cowling, same thing. It's all prepped and sanded to 600 grit. But I have the hood supported off here, and I got these are 2x4s on the sawhorses. That's what's supporting it, but I wrap those with paper because same thing, dirt and crap has been collected in that wood, so I have nice clean surface. What I was saying about the hood though is it's not sitting on the wood entirely, because my plan is when I go to mask off the stripes, they actually start back here on the cowling. The only place to give you a point of reference is measure point here and a measure point in the front. Then you have to drag the tape all the way across. It doesn't tell you where to put the stripe on the hood, so I have to put this together kind of like a puzzle. So I got it set up where I can slide this into place. It should go underneath everything just fine. And then I will tape off my line straight through both of them here, and then we'll proceed with painting. But in the meantime, to get the white paint and everything on the leading edge, I'm going to leave this sitting back here for now. That way we can get things painted. So that's kind of the paint step, I guess, like the process of getting those parts prepped. They're ready for spray. Now this is where we're going to talk about some tape. This stuff is not cheap. I have an 1/8 inch version and a 1/4 inch version. I keep them in the same bag and I keep them in a safe, clean place. This is the tape that I used 6 years ago on my Trans Am, and it still works very nice, but it's been stored in a good place so it didn't get damaged. But this is the part number for the one here. I think this is the 1/8 inch version, but you can also look up 1/4 inch. This stuff will go on and seal up the paint 100%, and you won't have any bleed through. It works really, really great. Now I use some regular cheap masking tape for setting gaps. That's what you see this is here for. So this is not going to use to be sealing any paint. It will not leave a crisp, clean line like this stuff does. Again, break down, spend the money. You're going to be yelling at me because it's a little spendy, but it's worth every dollar. Now what you see here, this is my stripe guide. So when I got everything all taped off, imagine these lines going across this hood. Well, there's a chance it's doing this if I lay them out. So when I'm all said and done, I can do a quick little lay this on there, and I can check my gauge, because this is what the stripes, that's the width, that's the spacing between it, and I can just do a quick check and just make sure everything looks really good. I made this up. All it is a piece of cardboard wrapped up with blue tape and some of my cheap masking tape, so I have a quick reference to where the stripe, check the width of and check the gauge. And where we get the information from, right here. It's worth, if you're building one of these cars, these books $40-50. It has all kinds of great information in horrible order and almost not legible, but it's still worth it. There's so much good information in this book. In particular, here in the back, it shows you how to put the ram air pans, all the pieces and parts, how to put the spoiler where it's mounted, where the stripes go. So this is where I get the dimensions from to put all the stuff on, even the location of the decals. That's all here in this book. Now, if you buy, I've never bought the stencil kit from the suppliers, but I suspect it comes with the 3 TransAm stickers and maybe this picture and some tape. Well, I think that's a couple $100. Well, like I said, this book is $40 or $50. The tape, it may make up some of the difference, but I know this stuff works. I don't know if the kit comes with this, but that's where I get the information. So we'll be using that to do our measurements to put our stripes on. So first things first, though, I need to get some of the stuff put away. I'm going to wipe this stuff all down again with a microfiber cloth. It's already been wiped down with a degreaser and ready to go, but I'm going to wipe it down one last time. Then I'm going to hit everything with a sealer coat, which is the epoxy reduced with a little acetone. So there you have a sealer coat spread on all of our pieces here. We're going to let that sit for about 30 minutes to dry completely. And the other thing about sealer coat, do not sand, do not touch, do nothing to it unless it's a catastrophic, feel like a huge run. Then I get it. But if there's little dust nibs or anything in it, let them go. Put one coat of base on, and that's when we'll take care of any of that stuff when it as needed. But we'll let this sit for a few more minutes. We'll come back and hit it with some color. Well, that's cured long enough now. We're going to be doing 3 total coats of base coat. That's what I did on the rest of the car. I want to follow suit to help get the color to match. The downside of not paying it all 100% assembled, there's a risk of maybe a little difference in color. This car being a solid should be a lot better, but we're going to find out. But follow suit. I put 3 coats, reduced it 1-to-1 between the paint and the reducer, so my mix is going to be the same. So you're going to see me go 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to let that dry, do the next step. There you go, first coat's done, pretty uneventful, but you can see how smooth that's laying out. It's kind of hard to pick up in the camera, but you'll see if I can pick a little tiny dust nib there. It's kind of hard to get the camera to focus, but you'll see some stuff in it. That happens. Now what I'm going to do, let that dry about 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm going to take my microfiber cloth and I'm going to wipe down the whole thing with it to pull any of those little dust nibs out. Now it's going to expose the primer underneath, which is white, but we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to lift all those little spots out with the microfiber cloth. But we'll give that a few more minutes to wipe this down, then we'll go ahead and hit it with coat number 2. Well, this is dried off long enough, or cured, I guess to say enough. We're going to wipe this thing down. Let's try to see if I can get the camera to focus on that right there. You see that chunk of debris in it? I'm going to use a microfiber cloth. I'm just going to wipe that thing out of there. Gone. Now that way, when I put my next layers, it's not building on top of that. That's why I wanted to get any kind of like that out. That's one of the downsides of painting in the garage. But if you just let this kind of just glide across the top, you'll feel it pick all those little dust nibs right out of this paint, and it helps reduce the stuff you got to fight out of it when it's all said and done. This is how we're going to get a decent garage paint job. So I'll finish wiping all this down and hit it with coat number 2. All wiped down, ready for pass number 2. I'll wipe down with my microfiber cloth. They're not really good. You don't see a whole lot of debris or anything in that paint, which works out really nice. Again, a paint booth would be better, but I'm trying to duplicate what you can do at home, prove to you that it can be done and still get reasonable results out of it. Those who say it can't be done, well, that's what I'm trying to prove otherwise. That way it builds some confidence in your ability to make things happen without going broke trying to put this car back together, because this stuff isn't cheap. But if you can do a lot of it yourself, not only is it rewarding because you did it yourself, but you saved a few bucks in the meantime. So anyway, I'm going to shut up, put the 3rd coat of color on it, and that's when the magic's going to begin, putting the stripes on. third coat complete, dry, and ready to go. I went ahead and laid the hood inserts in here because I said that's where our point of reference is going to start on this insert or shoot away straight back here across the cowling. Now the cowling, oh, actually one more note. This is a solid white color, not metallic paint. I've been wiping off in between coats to get any dust nibs out, but if it was metallic, listen carefully, I would not wipe it down before you put the clear on. Go ahead and leave it as is. If you wipe that down, there's a chance you could disturb some of the metallic, and you might be able to see the marks from when you wiped it off. So I would say when it comes to metallic, I would not wipe it down with a microfiber cloth. So anyway, back to this here. This is not. So this is solid, so we're good. I put a little piece of tape on here, that little buffer as I'm dragging it in and out. Now the rubber seal goes over that, but just in case, I want a little bit of protection. Now we're going to slide this up underneath here, and we're going to simulate the gap that the hood would have when it's all together. So I need to shim this up. I got some wood already set apart here. I kind of set aside thinking ahead because I knew I was going to have to do something like this here. We're going to put this piece of wood underneath it and stack this one, and then we're going to adjust the height of it to close the gap because we're real tight on the ends and kind of big in the middle here. So we'll do this. I'll have to put this down here just a second. Now I'll show you what we did here. Look at this. Now we're all on the same plane. Got about what the gap is going to be when installed. This is why we went to geometry. If we move this thing further back, it's going to change what point it contacts the hood. So I want to simulate approximately the gap that's going to be on the car. That was about here when I had it all set up. And as you can see, what I did was just stacked wood, had some old stir sticks. Let me get you down here. All stacked underneath to get it to go. And then underneath the center of the hood, I had this piece of steel, and it's on that angled part. I can slide this piece of steel forward or backwards. That raises or lowers the back of the hood up and down. But now I'm on the same plane. So now what we need to do is get that old assembly manual out and find my start point for the stripe on each side compared to the center line, and then mark it here and do the same to the front. And then we'll go ahead and get that fine line tape going and see if we can't get these stripes laid out. Now here's where this book's going to come in handy. Mine happens to have what I'm looking for right on the cover. There's a couple of versions of this book, but it's all the same stuff. Now what I have to do though, it says everything's referenced from the center line of the hood or the cowling. Finding the center line of the cowling is a little tricky. I started back here on this corner. You can't go straight across because the tape measure, what doesn't bend in the middle, so you have to kind of shoot it at an angle. But I took it from here to the center line, it'd be like 25 7/8, and I checked it from that corner to this corner, and the same thing. Now I've got it marked there with the C. That's my center line. Now the front kind of self-explanatory. We'll just go ahead and pull a line from the center rib, just kind of eyeball right there at the peak of that, and we'll go from side to side. Then we're going to find that mark described in the book, and then we're going to assemble the stripes. Now this is going to tell me where the beginning of our stripe is at. So let's just say this is what we're going to paint. So that edge there from center line, then to this edge here is what it's referring to. So then we got to build our stripes after that. So let's go ahead and locate that on the front hood scoops and on the cowling on both sides. So with that being said, it wants me to go 9.19 inches from that center line over. So 9.19 over. That's the beginning of my stripe. Go ahead and get that marked. Now what I've done, I've taken a piece of tape here, wrote 6.94. That's my magic measurement from this new center line I've discovered here with this black marker over to here to the beginning edge of my stripe. So I'm going to put it here at the 10 mark because I don't have a really cool tape measure. And so just under, I guess like one of those like dress tape measures, flexible, might be better, I don't know, but this is what I've got. This is what we're going to use, and we're going to make it happen. So I put the 10 there, so that means 6.94, just under 17 inches. I'm going to make me a little mark right there. That's where that stripe's supposed to begin. I'm going to do the same thing here to this side. Just under 17. We'll do that at 10. All right, now that's the beginning of my stripes. Now I need to just move things around. That at least gets me a reference point to get things started here. Now I should have probably drew an arrow, but I'm gonna draw an arrow, meaning everything's on that side of that line. That's where everything begins. Of course, be cautious with using permanent marker on fresh paint. But what I need to do now, I'm gonna peel this back, and I'm gonna lay this 1/4 inch stripe of plain masking tape right where my line is, and then we'll check that point. That's where we're going to begin masking at. All right, that's how I want that side to go. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I can get you in here close so you can see what I did. That's my mark. This white line is gonna simulate what will be blue. So that's our 1/4 inch wide blue stripe. Then we have an 1/8 inch towards back to white, then the big blue stripe, and of course the same thing on the opposite side. So again, this is going to simulate what will be painted blue. So that's my start point. I'll use my super fine line tape now and shoot it straight back there to the back to the point I've already established back there, just the same. And of course, reversing this side. My little arrow side, it's gonna keep me hopefully pointing in the right direction. You gotta remember, it's the flip-flop when it comes to stripes. You know, you want the paint to stay where and what color, so you gotta think this through a little bit. And that's also why this gauge comes in handy. I almost had an epic fail on the back. I threw that on there, and I actually got one of my lines flip-flopped, and the stripe would have been a 1/4 inch too wide. So it's just kind of a point, a little visual reference, help keep me going on the right path. So in a sense, this is how that stripe's gonna go. It's gonna look like this. Our blue stripe, going to have a white fine line, and then back to the blue. So this is what we're going to go with now. So now my points of reference are happy. I need to remember, though, what side I need to start my tape on. So I don't want to draw on this. I don't want it to bleed through. But so we just got to remember it goes on the this side of that tape. We'll go ahead and get our fine line tape now, the good stuff, not this, the good stuff, and I'll show you how we get that going then. Now here is that fine line, super expensive but fantastic tape. Now it will stretch, so if you pull it, stretch it, it'll make it skinnier than a 1/4 inch. So you have to keep a little tension on it to keep it straight, but not too much that it actually distorts the size of the tape. So we're gonna put the tape here at the edge there. I'm gonna drag it back and hope we get this straight. I'm going to look at that side map. It looks pretty straight. I can run with that. Now that I'm happy with that, I just run my finger and kind of just push that down. It actually seals really nice, not a whole lot of pressure. We'll go ahead and squeeze that into place. Now the transition between the hood scoop and the hood, got a razor blade for that. We'll cut those once we get everything routed here first. Now I can take off my little 1/4 inch starter tape, just to get it out of the way. And now we're going to use, this is the not so great tape. This is stuff just for a gauge to separate my line, get my 1/4 inch gap in here. We turn blue when we're done, so we're going to peel this tape right back off. Now the thing about this is, now I've got a nice straight line, I just follow the line, the piece of tape I just put on there. Now you can see how this could get just a little nerve-wracking. Now that's my spacing. And we'll come back with my, this is the 1/8 inch fine line tape. This is where it will leave that small, thin, white stripe. You get more of a visual of what we're doing here. Get that line as straight as possible, and that's what I've got. Now this tape here can be removed. This was just for spacing, like I said. So we'll get this thing out of the way. This is kind of rewarding and kind of fun. Trying to peel it at about a 45-degree angle or so, not to lift the paint from underneath, but it's been drying for about an hour now, so we should be just fine. Now, go ahead and come over 5 1/4 inches from this one, and we start another 1/8 inch line. This is where this thing is going to come in super handy. Now remember, it's kind of a reversed image, so it's going to mess with you a little bit, because that's what's going to be painted blue. So we'll slide this back to a leading edge, and then I can just put a piece of tape right here, and it saves me a whole heck of a lot of time of measuring. So there would be, that's going to be a new start line for that 1/4 inch stripe. I'll do the same thing here. All right, I got the same thing done back here. Like I said, you lay this thing right into place. It's just a huge time saver. You can see, run that powder, that line, and I know exactly where my stripe needs to start. Now I'll take my piece of masking tape, go all the way up there to the front, and do the same thing. But we got to go over this little hump in the hood, so we want us to make it turn a little bit. So it's a little tricky. But we'll go ahead and get a piece of tape laid on there, and then we can check it with our stripe gauge, see how close we are. Now again, here's the thing about the stripe gauge. I know it gets confusing, but this is where it comes in handy. Again, this is going to be blue, that's going to be white, and this is going to be, this tape comes up, it's going to be blue. But you can check my stripe gauge. Looking pretty good. We're off by 1/64 of an inch or something. I'm going to call that probably within a tolerance to me. It can't be perfect, right? But look at that. Now that's actually pretty good in about the middle of the hood. We're lining up okay. So again, our stripe gauge is telling me what I need to tell. This one will not be on here when it's done. So no, just, it's a lot to keep in mind when you're doing this. So I would say that's going to look pretty good. Those are nice and straight, looking all right. So I'll go ahead now and line each side of this one like I did here. The skinny 1/8 inch and a 1/4 inch on that side. All right, passenger side's all done. Again, we can check a few areas of the stripe, make sure we're on par. Yep, where we're supposed to be, looking good. Went ahead and pulled the insert out of the hood here and took a little bit of extension, ran on the tape. That way it's actually taped underneath there all the way. I had a little problem with my car. I didn't like how it looked. So that's going to work out pretty good. Now I got to follow the exact same thing here on the driver's side. And then what we'll do, I'll go ahead and cut the tape between the two panels, and then we'll fold those down and make a nice clean edge. And then we'll get ready to put some blue on. That was a whole lot of stress, or a little bit of stress, or whatever. It's a lot to get those stripes laid out. But now I've got them where I want them, positioned, checked them, everything looks great. Went ahead and cut the cowling loose. Now I'm going to drag this back. We're just going to fold the edges over and make a nice, clean, tight line. Then we'll come back with our masking paper and cover up all the hood and hit it with the blue here. Now, I'm going to say masking is probably still my least favorite part of the build. I've got probably 35, 40 minutes in just messing with this. But it's all masked off and ready to paint. Now, I've got everything kind of laid in position. I put the cowling back under, but a little larger gap so I can get the paint in between them. But I want to put it at the same angle. I know I'm being critical, but that metallic stuff, these stripes are metallic, and that stuff just has a mind of its own. So you want to try to keep the panels as close together as you plan on matching up for color, and keep them at the same angle. That way, as the paint, the base coat, as the metallic lays out, because of gravity, temperature, angle, everything, they all flip-flop about the same, so it appears to be the same color. I know that sounds crazy, maybe it's too much, but that's how I like to do it. So now at this point, one last wipe down, mix up some blue, and I plan on putting like one just real light coat, make sure everything looks good. I don't see any major problems. Then I'll put one just medium to wet coat, and that should be good enough coverage. I don't want to put a whole lot on because I don't want a lot of millage, a lot of thickness. I just want enough to get the color. That's why I put the white on first, which is the lighter color, and the stripes are the darker color. Now, if it was flip-flopped, let's say the stripes are white and the car was blue, I would actually paint the white first, tape it off, and put the blue on top as a final product. Kind of like here, still blues on top and final, but you always try to put your darker color on top of the lighter when doing stripes. So anyway, enough of this. Let's get this wiped down and put some blue on this thing. I'll give that probably about 30 or 40 minutes to dry off really good, and then I can peel the tape off and it's ready for some clear coat. Okay, so maybe I take back all the stress and anger of saying I dislike using masking tape, because look at the results here. I'm telling you, it almost made it worth it now. And here's the why you use that very expensive tape. Look at that line. Really super clean. It's worth spending the money to get that kind of result. So anyway, next thing here, I'm gonna got these all staged. I pulled the hood inserts out so I could clear the entire panel. No tape edge that way. I can clear these the same way. And I got the spoiler pedestals also ready to be cleared just the same. So everything's all kind of laid out. Now the clear coat, probably not as critical, but I still have that valence kind of at the same angle. I got it shimmed up with some wood, laid my masking paper over so I don't blow any dust into it, because this is actually coming out super clean so far. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and hit it with 3 coats of clear, and I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Well, clear coating process all finished and complete. Got plenty of layers of clear coat. It's a little orange peely and a couple little small dirt nibs, but all seriousness, that should buff out and clean up really, really nice. So I'll let that cure for a couple, 3-4 weeks, and we'll do some cutting and buffing, and then put it back on that. So not that you'll probably ever paint stripes on a TransAm, maybe doing stripes or something else, or maybe even a 2-tone paint job. It's how you can do your separation lines and how to do it. So that there is all squared away and done. Next for Project Mockingbird, I do have the stack gauge set up that I can do a test on. The car does run, operate, wiring harnesses in it. So I may work on doing that, plus a million other videos installing the front bumper, the chrome trim around the windshield. So I have plenty of ideas and plenty of videos coming your way, so you don't want to miss those. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It helps me out. And hopefully the YouTubes will get their things going again. I understand the economy has got some ups and downs, but I'm going to share a little story here with you. But I'm building these cars. Now, they're not cheap to build by any stretch of the imagination. The owners are offsetting the cost of the parts. I don't make a whole lot of money on the car builds, but if I wanted to do this full time, what I could figure out at an hourly rate, the amount of time in it to get them as detailed as the Pumpkin, to get them as detailed as the Mockingbird, you're in the areas of $80,000 to $90,000 parts and labor. That's a sizable chunk of change considering the car on resale value isn't worth that much. So with that being said, I'm kind of figuring out, that's why I haven't jumped into doing this full time, because I just don't know the number of people that would be interested in spending that kind of money on their car. So what was going to happen in my mind, or what I was hoping, was the YouTubes was going to pick up. You make a little bit of money. I was hoping to make just a little bit more, then offset some of that expense to bring the price down to a price point that maybe you could motivate a little more people to want to have me build their cars. That was my frustration with YouTube the other week, that I was really kind of on a trend. It was growing, and then this whole summer has just flatlined and actually had a bit of a decrease. And it's frustrating. The views are up, subscribers are up. You guys are all watching it for plenty of watch time. It looks healthy, the channel, but what they are reimbursing me for my time actually went down. So it was discouraging. I was really hoping to fulfill that dream of maybe just building these cars all day long while offsetting the expense. So that being said, someone asked me how much does it cost to actually build these cars if I was going to charge. A car in light condition of the Mockingbird, you guys seen the amount of metal work, the amount of stuff that actually went into that car. The Great Pumpkin, same thing, a lot of metal work, a lot of detail work, replacing things. Went through all the systems. You're in the areas of $80,000 to $90,000. Then with inflation, that price went up. Convertible top for the Mockingbird. I remember paying like $350 for my TransAm 6 years ago. $700 now for a convertible top kit with the well, the pads, the top, the back glass, some of the tack strips. It's gone up. So that reflects some of the cost too, I understand. But I don't know. I was just rambling. Maybe kind of let you guys know, gals, what was going on in my mind and what I was thinking. So hopefully YouTube's will ramp back up. Maybe the economy, maybe something will switch and start making more money. And then I say, hey, I may flip the switch and building some more of these cars for you instead of just my friends and family and me. So anyway, I've rambled on enough. I'm not high on paint fumes. I actually wore my mask. I'm doing good. But I'm going to wrap it up for today. It's getting warm here. Let this sit and cure and bake. I'm going to try maybe get it out there in the sun and let it cook for a while. That actually really expedite the process. So appreciate you following me on the journey of the Mockingbird. Definitely plenty more videos coming your way. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys and gals next time.